So welcome everyone again, and thank you for joining our live class today. As you might have read from the ingredient, we're doing two things today. We're going step, you say more difficult. No, I'm joking. It's not more difficult. It's just that it will keep us busy for a little longer because they're both very simple recipes to prepare. So one is the Braciole Rifatte. So that weird name is Braciole, which is how in Italian we call a thin slice of meat that it's done in any way. So braciola can stand for just a little slice and cooked in a way, in some way. So braciole rifatte means recooked, because this is, it's a hint for, well, everyone, but today we'll just make it on purpose, but it's how to reuse leftovers. So if you're doing anything fried and you're lucky to have leftovers, because usually in my house there's no leftover when we do fried stuff. But if you do have leftovers of the fried stuff, you can then remake it in the next day. And often Italians, they do it in a tomato sauce or in any kind of sauce. And this thing is not only for meat, but also for pasta. For example, you do pasta and you have leftovers. The next day you can do a tomato sauce, a meat sauce, and mix everything up, even other ingredients that you have in the fridge that, you know, they expire soon, you need to kind of get rid. And you put everything together and cook it in the oven. So this is a way of, let's say, avoiding waste. And, you know, because we care of the environment, I think it's good to do that. But as I say, we're not lucky to have leftovers from fried stuff, so we'll make them on purpose today. And the other recipe was a dessert for once, which is the chocolate salami. So it's called like this because I don't know if you browsed anything, but it's actually a cake that it's made of chocolate and cookies, but that it's shaped up in like a salami. So it really looks like a proper salami when you kind of before serving it, let's say. So it will look something like this. This is salted, of course, so it's not good to mix the two, but it will look like this, something like this. And it's a very simple recipe, very quick to prepare, and especially if you have kids or, you know, grandkids, nieces, and they usually love it because it's fun to prepare also with them. It doesn't involve any cooking. It does have just to stay and rest in the fridge, and you will see it's also quite funny to prepare as well. So as usual, I will kind of hold you on a little further to show you all the ingredients in case you're missing on something. And then I will just show you a few utensils that we may need, but nothing that you can't grab from your kitchen. So for the salted recipe, we will need, of course, the meat. I have the luck of having the butcher just a few steps from my house, so I had it prepared this morning and sliced. So it does have to be thin slice, but anything thicker than this, don't worry, no problem. We can pound it. So these are my 6+3, because for my flatmates, the 6 was not enough. So I had to do more. I live with my boyfriend and my brother, for those who don't know. And they are great eaters. They love to eat. So then I have some fresh parsley, but also basil. It's okay if you want to use, if you prefer basil, or if you want to use basil. I have a can of peeled tomatoes, and I have some broth that I've saved from, and I've frozen from a previous cooking. I did actually with some of you a recipe with chicken, and it had to be boiled, and so I've saved some stock, and here it is now. I defrosted and it's ready. And you have frying oil, or also you can use for this preparation also olive oil, but I still always prefer to fry with frying oil. I think it's better, but olive oil, it's also fine. And some breadcrumbs. And then my garlic is now soaked in butter, which would make it yummier. But yeah, you should have a few cloves of garlic and an egg, and one egg, okay? And then for this recipe, the only things that we will need for cooking is a skillet where we will fry our slices, and a pot where we will be making our tomato sauce. And then, so the pot has to be big enough, because not only you will be making your tomato sauce here, but then all the fried slices, braciole, will have to go into the tomato sauce. So we need to have a quite large one, and then just a normal skillet, and then a little pot like this where we can, and we'll start doing this now so that we take let's say advantage of time, where we can actually melt our chocolate bain-marie. So I have a bain-marie kind of little pot that basically just stands into the water, but anything that you can put inside on top. So bain-marie, if you know, it's a technique of cooking for which you put some water in a pot to boil, and you put another container on top of it that actually gets cooked thanks to the water underneath. Okay? I hope this is clear. If you have any questions, stop.
It's just got to sit inside it. You don't have any little metal balls?
So for the
our computers.
So sorry, 1 second, guys. Because I hear.
Do you want us to mute computers now?
Yeah. Where? There you go.
Please mute your computer.
Sorry, because I'm sorry if you're talking to me, but I have a lot of noise on the background, so I cannot really hear you very well.
Sorry.
We should probably all mute our computer.
Mute the computers.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, if you want, yes. Of course,
go.
if you want, you can mute yourselves, and then whenever you have a question, please unmute and talk. I don't mind.
Yeah.
Don't worry. It's normal that now we're all preparing, so it gets kind of noisy. Maisie, if you're comfortable without the video, it's okay. But if you want to turn on the video, feel welcome to do that. Anyway, it's not necessary. Anyway, I have little screens of you on top of my screen, so I can see you in a tiny side of the screen. Okay, so last about so we're at the cake. So yes, so a bain-marie for the cake and a little pot for the cake, for the bain-marie, sorry. So we will melt our 200 grams of dark chocolate into that bain-marie, and we'll start by that so that this will slowly melt, and at the same time we can prepare the cookies and everything. Then for the cake, you should have 150 grams of butter, which I will have to get in a moment, 2 eggs, 100 grams of sugar, of just white sugar, and the cookies. So the cookies, I'm sorry if I didn't really get the word I should use. Biscuits, cookies, anything that it's dry, that you can simply break into pieces. So if you don't have any questions, we will actually start by the cake and pass on to our meat preparation just afterwards. So again, we will start by topping this. So prepare your pot with water and your bain-marie little container onto a stove, and we can place our chocolate to melt. Nothing you have to do. This will melt slowly, and you don't need to stir. You don't need to do anything. We just have to wait for it to melt. Okay, so we can start by the cookies. So another patient step of the cookies is to break them in pieces. So I would just suggest to do this by hand. You just grab a few of them and just break them up. It doesn't matter if they're not very small pieces in the beginning. We will then put our hands back on later. So just break them more or less in pieces, and then we'll check if we have too big. So once you have, let's say, breaking all of them, you can simply go back into the bowl and make sure you break them finely. So they don't have to be break up in like, it doesn't have to be a powder. They have to be breaking up, but we still need pieces, okay? They don't have to be too big, of course. We don't have to have a powder. They have to be in pieces, smaller pieces, bigger pieces. Of course, they're not even, but it doesn't matter, okay? But we still
Yep.
need pieces. So,
So
if you can see from the screen or from the bowl like this.
okay.
No,
So I'm
no, we need a separate,
Okay.
we need to mix the sugar, the eggs, and the butter in a separate bowl. So
This is just sugar and egg,
yes,
right? Okay.
yeah, correct. So in the ingredients, you might have seen and read also that you could put a glass of rum as well, or something, a sweet liqueur or something like that. You can do that. After now we put the butter, you can also put your rum, or if you have it. I didn't really find anything appropriate in my taste, so I'm not having any.
So we should have the butter melted, right?
Yes, now, yeah. So, and after the butter, so if someone wanted to use the rum or the liquor, you can put that one as well. So it doesn't really give a taste. Oh, sorry. Yep.
So right now we just want the cookies, melted butter, and sugar in a bowl together.
No, not yet. We need to have the sugar, the chocolate mixed with our butter and sugar and eggs and everything else. So we need to have that ready first. Yeah.
Irene,
Yeah.
what are you putting in with the eggs right now?
So the first step is sugar and eggs, and we beat it up, and then butter.
Okay.
And if you're having the liqueur, also the liqueur.
Okay. So the sugar's going in with the eggs now.
Yeah, first sugar and eggs, and you beat everything up and have like till you reach the creamy consistency, and then the butter. So the butter, of course, I was happier before because I had melted butter. I had let it to melt a couple of hours ago, then I spilled it. So this has to be well melted.
Irene, it's Heidi.
Yes, Heidi, sorry.
That
Yes?
butter mixture is delicious with the rum.
Oh, yeah, well, yeah, if you're using it, it's very good. Again, I was just saying before, it doesn't really give a taste, but it does give a slight back taste that I think it's interesting. Okay, my chocolate is ready. So sorry.
Irene, this smells so delicious.
Good.
I'm
And
like
we're only
putting
at
my
the beginning, you know?
No.
Yeah. I mean, you're gonna see the flavor and the smells of it when mixing it with the biscuits. It's gonna be very good. So you'll have to hold the child inside you, okay? So you should have a mixture that it's quite liquid like this. Can you see?
Yeah.
So once you've mixed everything in, and now it's simple. We pour all of this gorgeous cream, chocolate cream, inside our cookies. And it's already quite painful to see all this chocolate fall. But we'll have to wait. You'll have to resist. So now we mix everything together. And we'll have a very thick paste of. Okay, so now, as you could read also on the ingredients list, you should have some aluminum foil and cellophane. No, sorry, baking paper, parchment paper. Yes. Yeah. So this is how we will lay down and prepare, because it's basically rolling up this salami inside the paper.
I didn't get a chance to see your consistency. Can I see your
consistency? Yeah, sure. So it's pretty thick, as you can see. So it does fall, but it's quite thick. I will try to pass all of this because I have a very heavy bowl. on the parchment. Okay. So as you can see, I can really shape it if I want. I can really shape it. So what I'm trying to do now is just to move it along an imaginary line, so I'm on a line, and I'm gonna then wrap it with our parchment paper. So we have to make a big candy, so make sure that you tie the sides like this, and you squeeze at the same time so that the mixture stays all in the middle. You see, I'm also rolling it at the same time. So we have to roll it and squash it at the same time to make sure that it doesn't have holes inside, so that it's all well thick together. Can you see?
Yes.
So again, it's for those who have like a looser mixture. As you can see, it's soft, but I can model it before serving tomorrow. Usually we completely cover the salami on all sides with the icing sugar and serve it. Some also, to make it look more like a salami, they also put a string on top of it first, and then put the icing sugar, and then take the string off so that it really looks like a salami. So you can really have fun in doing this if you want. So the aluminum foil is only to kind of keep it in shape. So we'll just wrap it in the foil like this and give it the final shape that we want, let's say. And this also will help the refrigerating part, because this now goes in the fridge. So if you're putting it in the freezer because you want to have it earlier, remember to take it off the freezer and put it in the fridge about 1 hour before you need it. Because otherwise, if you leave it in the fridge and freezer until you need it, then it's too hard. You can't cut it. All right, so we can start doing our braciole. The whole purpose of doing this, of frying them before, is that basically they become very spongy with all the crust on the outside. And when they soak then into the sauce, they're perfect. I mean, they become spongy, and instead of the crisp becomes, the sponge to absorb the tomato sauce. So have the skillet ready to fry the meat, but don't turn the fire on yet. If you're ready to go on, you can start mincing, cutting the garlic. So into the garlic doesn't have to be too fine, just pieces, okay?
Okay, do we put the garlic in the skillet?
Yes,
with the
so
oil?
I've put the garlic into the pot with some of the oil, and yes, you can put the tomatoes in as well. So turn on the fire. We wait for the garlic to be, let's say, golden, and then we can put our tomato sauce inside. So you might have read in the ingredients that I was suggesting for the braciole stock or water. So either of the two, it doesn't matter really. Of course, the stock it has more flavor, but it doesn't matter if it's water. It's to actually help our sauce to stay, let's say, not to dry up too much. So now you have to keep it low flame, okay? And we are adding salt and pepper. And we will let it cook. Once in a while, we'll give it, while we're doing the rest of the preparation, we'll give it a good stir and make sure that it's not drying. So have our stock or water next to our pot, okay? But if you're ready now, we can pass on to the meat. You would need now 1 egg, the breadcrumb, the breadcrumb. So I suggest usually, because I'm messy, I won't do this on the board. So I'll use one deeper dish to do the egg, and then I'll take a flat one to put my breadcrumb, because we'll pass the meat, the slices, before in the egg, and then into the breadcrumb, and then frying. Okay. So yeah, we just simply mix the egg and dress it with a bit of salt and pepper.
I may not have given enough breadcrumbs, but I can add some more.
So add salt and pepper to your egg. So now your egg should have salt and pepper, and we would be ready to start. So for those who want a thicker crust, a thicker fried layer, you can do that also twice. But make sure you coat the meat very well. So also helping yourself with your fingers. The crust is what is going to absorb the tomato. So make sure you lay it well.
This is Lexi. I think Amanda and I and our husbands were there in 2017, and our husbands still talk about how much fun they had at your butcher. They love your butcher.
Plus, I think you were here in 2017 when there still was the guy that would give also some gratuities, you would buy some stuff, he would just pop something extra in the bag. And
yep, that was him.
Yeah, Vittorio. But if you're ready, we can fry them. This was one of my favorite dish as a little girl. It's still now. I like it a lot. But it was ages I didn't have it. I didn't prepare it at home. And it's something that I think it's very simple, but yet very yummy. So something you will have to remember when you have this dish, which by the way, you can always make it, everything, and put it in the tomato sauce. And then if you're not having it soon, you can always reheat it in a second moment. Just have it ready and cooked, but and before serving, let's say, you can just simply reheat it. So you must have, and this is really an Italian thing, but you must have it, otherwise you'll regret, to have some bread when you're having this on your table, because you have to do the Italian scarpetta. You surely heard about this word in Italian. Scarpetta, it's when we take a piece of bread and clean our dish, especially when you have saucy stuff. So this is the dish to make scarpetta. So don't disappoint me and have your bread ready, okay? Make sure you do scarpetta this time. Now. So I'm not sure you want to see, but the sauce, it's quite, as you can see, juicy, let's say, not juicy, liquid, as you can see. So now, and it's on purpose, so now we can put inside our slices, braciole. And again, they're meant to be soaked into the tomato. So make sure that they soak. So I'm putting them also on two sides. Again, this part of soaking them, it's not very long. It doesn't require a long time.
How long does it need to cook?
Again, it depends on the size of your, it depends on the size of your meat and on the thickness of your sauce, but it's probably around 15 minutes. But make sure that you can just test by, in a while, you take one of the pieces of meat out. Let's wait about 10 minutes.
Right.
And then you try one, you taste one and see if you think it's well soaked into the tomato or not.
Okay.
That's the goal. They have to be soaked completely and spongy. So the outside has to become spongy and the meat has to really be flavored with tomato. So I'm adding a bit more stock so that this continues bubbling into the tomato, and it will make them thicker as well. It's fine. But if you think or the tomato is too thick, the tomato sauce is too thick, or that it's not enough, you can add more water or stock and have actually the final result needs to be that the slices are soaked into our sauce and they're bubbling inside the tomato sauce. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Irene,
So,
what type of pasta would you serve with this?
So actually, this is a very good question because the answer might surprise you, but in Italy, we don't do this with pasta usually. We actually, not at all. We eat this as a second dish. So, in Italy, we have antipasti, then we have our pasta or first course with the sauce, and then we have a second dish with the side dish and our dessert. So this would be as a second dish. But nobody says that we can do a melting pot of cultures and you can be doing pasta with this. So I guess that so if you're having pasta with also the meat inside, I suggest short pasta. And maybe you will have probably to cut your slices more because otherwise they're big pieces. But otherwise you can have on a dish with your pasta, the meat with some of the tomato sauce and use the rest of the tomato sauce to dress your pasta, which I still suggest to be short anyway.
Okay.
Was your question. Yeah.
Good. Thank you.
Yeah. Very welcome. Probably the last thing I need to tell you, it's about your basil and parsley. But so I'll just get some of it because it's a lot what I have.
So
But
Irene, if you have both,
Yeah.
which one would you choose?
Both of what? Sorry.
Both herbs. If you have basil and parsley, which one would you choose?
Well, it's a hard question. I prefer, but it's really personal taste. So don't take this as a rule. I prefer parsley with this recipe because in my opinion, the parsley goes very well both with the meat and the tomato. But it's a personal thing because the basil, it's perfect with tomato, perfect. I think there's nothing better than the combination of basil and tomato. But still, the meat kind of made me go for the parsley. So if you have both, I'm not sure. I would still say parsley, but I don't know. Which one do you like most?
I prefer parsley, but I have both, and I don't usually. I'm afraid I won't use the basil in something else, but I'll figure it out. I was leaning towards.
So try the basil because maybe it's what will give a difference also to your taste. So try the basil.
Okay.
And then you have parsley for something else, and you have more Italy into your house. So the basil or the parsley go in really at the last. When your dish is cooked, I usually suggest to just do this as a final step. You chop it in smaller pieces and you put it inside your pot and let it put a cover on top and let the aroma of your herb just melt into the pot.
So I could take. So with this dish, would you use a white or a red?
A red, definitely a red. We have beef and we have tomato.
That's tomatoes.
So a red for sure. A red for sure. You did it. You did the right choice. Absolutely.
Right.
So for the newers, so for Robin and Cynthia and well, Maisie, you might know, but maybe not. So we're running a collaboration with a vineyard that it's not with which we collaborate usually during the season because so we rent homes, but the more and more in these past years and more I would have loved this year, so in 2020 we're trying to involve people more and more in our culture. So this means on involving them into what it's living, how is to live around here. So the cooking is a big part of it, tasting other products, which is not necessarily only wine, but wine, of course, it's a big part of it. And then other producers that are local producers, like cheese producers and other goods producers like flour. So to see how many of the local productions are actually taking place around our areas. So to really come and meet not only us and our homes and our, let's say, surroundings, but also our culture, the way we live, and our everyday life, let's say. And so in this, I found recently, by recently I mean about 1.5 years ago, a winery that it's one of the few, and you would be surprised, but it's one of the few that does wine with lunch or dinner. So it's wine pairing with food. And trust me, not many do this, or if they do, it's for very, very expensive. This is a family-run business. They have their own farm, so they grow their vegetables and they hunt their wild boar, because one of their best preparations come with wild boar.
That's her Tuscany.
And they produce their own wine and several kinds. And I have to say, they always like to distinguish themselves, because they do, of course, use local vineyards, but they also use foreign vineyards. And the blending of the two have make very special wines. And so we're doing a collaboration with them to kind of support each other. For which you can have a discount if you want to order. I would be very happy to suggest you the wine that you can be using for such a recipe or for other recipes. You know, we have our channel, YouTube channel, where we have our past recipes. So if you're eager or you're curious to try any of them, you can always ask me what kind of wine you can pair with that. So if you want to support their wine, and if you want to have Tuscan wine at home, remember that you can write me, get in touch with me, and I'll send you their website and the promo code, of course, of iamtuscany, and I can also suggest you their products. I can guarantee it's good wine because it's done in a very good way, and it's not as expensive as buying it probably anywhere, because they don't happen to ship it anywhere if not to private. So you don't find their wines onto shelves of supermarket or brokers. So anyway, yeah, I'm very happy to be your dealer.
Thank you.
If you need any help, just let me know.
Thank you a lot.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Happy birthday.
Thank you very much.
Happy birthday, Irene.
Thank you. You're very nice. Thank you. Thank you for keeping me company also on this special, non-special day. This birthday in lockdown. So thank you very much for joining.
Grateful
Thank
to
you,
be
Irene.
here. Have a wonderful
Share with me your pictures if you remember, and thank you again. I hope you will enjoy the dish.
Ciao.
Ciao, everyone.
Bye,
Thank you very much,
Bye.
everyone.
Bye.
Ciao,
Thank you.
Maisie. Very welcome.